She was only 5 years old and suffered with her grandmother. I fought to get her out of the abuse, and today she is happy. I never thought I would experience something like this. It was a random Sunday when I realized my life was about to change irreversibly. Fear and anguish consumed me. Every physical sensation seemed amplified. My heart pounded and my hands trembled as I held my daughter in my arms. My name is Luciano. I'm 34, and my daughter Livia was 5 at the time. I always believed I could protect her from anything, that our simple but loving routine would guarantee her safety. But the signs were there, silent, almost imperceptible. Discreet cuts on her arms, prolonged silence, that strange fear of talking about certain events. For a long time, I questioned whether my intuition was wrong, but something inside me screamed that something was deeply wrong. The feeling of helplessness gnawed at me, and the fear of discovering the truth was overwhelming. Every look my daughter gave me revealed fragments of a silent suffering I hadn't noticed before, and my body reacted physically with tension, shortness of breath, and anger mixed with guilt. I knew I had to act, but the path seemed insurmountable. The pain of realizing that someone so close could cause such harm to my own daughter was intense and heartbreaking. What hurt most was the feeling that perhaps I had failed to protect her all along, and that the responsibility to make amends fell squarely on my shoulders. With no room for error, the turning point came that afternoon when I went to pick up Livia from my mother Celia's house. I always thought my mother helped with love, but the reality I found was terrifying. Livia was curled up on the sofa, trembling, avoiding my gaze, as if trying to disappear before my eyes. I asked her what had happened, and she mumbled incoherent words, repeating counts and phrases that made no sense to a child her age. My body froze, and the feeling of helplessness hit me, like a punch in the gut. I couldn't understand how someone so close and dear could be the source of so much fear and suffering for my daughter. The mixture of shock, anger, and despair made me feel physically ill. That afternoon marked the turning point in our lives. The certainty that something needed to be done immediately, but with great care, to avoid putting my daughter at risk again. Each breath felt heavy, as if I were trying to absorb the scale of what I was about to face, and the responsibility to protect my daughter forever imposed itself with full force, shattering any trace of hesitation or doubt. In the days that followed, my mind became a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts and emotions. I replayed every visit, every gesture, every detail of Livia's behavior at my mother's house, anger mixed with guilt and fear, and I incessantly wondered if I had noticed the signs earlier or if I could have done something to prevent the suffering my daughter had experienced. Every repetitive ritual she performed, every conditioned gesture, every prolonged silence took a physical and emotional toll on me. I felt a tightness in my chest, insomnia, tremors, and a constant feeling of being on the verge of collapse. Each night was an internal battle between controlling the fury, pain, and despair, and maintaining the clarity necessary to act for my daughter's safety. My mind reviewed possible legal scenarios and protective strategies, while simultaneously trying to rebuild Livia's trust and emotional security. The physical and emotional exhaustion was overwhelming, but the image of my daughter in pain kept me going. The mixture of despair, love, and determination created an almost unbearable state, but essential for me to be able to make conscious and safe decisions. I decided then that I could wait no longer. I called my brother Gustavo, a former military man, and explained the entire situation, as painful as it was to share. He looked me in the eye, firm and resolute, and said, "We're going to get her out of there, whatever the cost." We hired Mariana, a lawyer specializing in child protection, who explained that every action needed to be carefully planned within the law so that every step could be documented and admitted as evidence. We began collecting statements from neighbors, medical records, camera footage, and anything else that could prove the abuse. Each document was crucial evidence, but also a daily reminder of the severity of my daughter's trauma. The sense of responsibility and urgency was overwhelming, but for the first time, I felt there was a way, however difficult, to remove her from the abusive environment and protect her effectively and permanently. The intensity of the situation consumed me, but it also revealed a strength I didn't know I possessed. At the same time, my mother tried to manipulate the perception of everyone around us. She presented photos, videos, and stories that seemed to show care, but I could see the reality behind the facade: fearful looks, forced smiles, rigid gestures. Each piece of evidence of her manipulation increased my frustration, but also strengthened my resolve to fight. For the first time, I understood that protecting my daughter would require not only courage, but patience, strategy, constant observation, and an unconditional love I had never experienced in such pure intensity. I knew the battle would be long, emotionally draining, and fraught with legal and family challenges, but there was no alternative. My daughter needed immediate and consistent protection, and I would be the barrier between her and any future harm. The first concrete step was to arrange an emergency hearing. My body trembled with anxiety, every muscle tense, knowing my daughter's future was in the judge's hands. For weeks, I reviewed every piece of evidence, every statement, every detail Mariana had prepared. But nothing could prepare me for seeing Livia that day. So small, clutching, my hand tightly, yet at the same time trying to hide from everyone's gaze. I felt my stomach tighten, but a spark of courage propelled me. I needed to be her voice, because she still couldn't express her fear and suffering with words. The responsibility she felt was overwhelming, but the urgency of the situation demanded total presence and absolute focus. As we awaited the court ruling, the emotional toll was almost unbearable. I relived every visit, every gesture my daughter made, and every detail that could have indicated the abuse earlier. Desperation mixed with guilt. Why hadn't I noticed sooner? Why hadn't I listened more closely? Every repeated compulsive counting, every prolonged silence stabbed me like a knife. I cried alone, clutching photos of her, trying to control my breathing so as not to show my despair. Each day was an exercise in emotional strength, of holding back anger, fear, and frustration while trying to maintain a calm and protective posture for my daughter. Gustavo's support was essential during this period. He organized discreet visits, recorded suspicious behavior, and documented every piece of evidence of abuse. Each record brought momentary relief, but also reinforced the gravity of the situation. My mother's manipulation was intense. She managed to convince family and acquaintances that everything was fine, creating a narrative of being the perfect grandmother. We needed to be extremely cautious and strategic. Every misstep could put my daughter at risk or compromise the effectiveness of the evidence collected. The constant tension was exhausting, but the determination to protect her drove me on. The first session with Clara, a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma, was revelatory. She quickly identified the deep-seated traumas and conditioned behaviors Livia had developed. Each ritual broken during the sessions was a small victory, but also a reminder of what she had suffered. Clara taught me techniques to reinforce my daughter's emotional security, establish reliable routines, and help her feel safe. For the first time, I felt there was a concrete path to recovering her childhood and rebuilding lost trust. The process required patience, consistency, and continued presence. When the court ruling finally arrived, I felt relief mixed with fear. The judge granted me temporary custody, suspended my mother's visitation, and ordered Livia to begin therapy immediately. I cried with emotion and tension at the same time. Finally, I could protect her, but the real battle was just beginning. Restoring trust, a sense of security, and a sense of childhood to a traumatized child would be a delicate and ongoing process. I knew I couldn't fail, and that every step from then on would require my full presence, patience, and unconditional love. In the following months, each day became a silent but essential battle. Livia still woke at night, repeating compulsive counting and rituals, reminding me of the trauma she uncarried. Each time we managed to break one of these patterns, I felt a mixture of relief and guilt. Relief at seeing progress, guilt at remembering the suffering she had experienced. My body remained tense, always alert, and my mind reviewed every gesture, every reaction, trying to understand her needs without pressuring her. I learned to celebrate small achievements, even if they seemed minimal to anyone else. Each spontaneous smile was like a spark of hope, but each retreat still reminded me of the fragility of her trust. Celia continued to manipulate family and friends, creating a false narrative of care and love. It was essential to learn to shield myself emotionally, understanding that not everyone would see the gravity of what my daughter had experienced. Teresa Souza from the Child Protective Services became a crucial support. She assessed Livia's safety, developed detailed protection plans, and guided me on how to act in each risky situation. Each report from her served as a vital tool in ensuring my daughter's protection, but also reminded me of her continued vulnerability. I learned that protecting a child depends not only on love, but also on structure, strategy, and specialized support. Daily coexistence required complete adaptation. I learned to interpret Livia's silent signals, the way she flinched, the way she held my hand tightly, the way she looked away from seemingly harmless stimuli. Each small step in rebuilding required patience and attention. We transformed our routine into moments of recovery, games, reading, small tasks that reinforced a sense of security. Each gesture of hers, unconditioned by her grandmother, became an indicator of progress, yet each step forward required extreme care to avoid triggering fear or withdrawal. I learned that rebuilding a lost childhood is slow, intense, and demanding. While I cared for my daughter, the legal battle continued. Mariana guided each step of the process with precision, ensuring that evidence and testimony were presented appropriately and strategically. I attended every meeting, learning about rights, procedures, and legal boundaries. Every detail left me mentally exhausted, but it also made me feel more in control of a situation that previously seemed insurmountable. Knowing we were building a solid foundation to protect my daughter gave me the strength to keep going, even on the most difficult days, and taught me that child protection requires complete dedication, knowledge, and constant vigilance. The most painful moment was realizing how much my daughter still carried invisible scars, feeling her small hands clench in panic, hearing her repeat words and rituals, noticing her fear of trusting. All of this destroyed me emotionally, but also reinforced the reason for each sacrifice. Each tear of mine mingled with hers, and I understood that my strength came from unconditional love and the determination to never let her go back to that suffering. For the first time, I understood that fighting for a child means giving yourself completely, without reservations, knowing that every action, no matter how small, can change the course of their life. In the months that followed, each of Livia's achievements was accompanied by intense challenges. Clara, the psychologist, implemented play therapies that allowed my daughter to express repressed feelings through play. Each session revealed new layers of trauma, but also small breakthroughs, genuine laughter, curiosity about the world, and questions I would never have asked before. My heart filled with hope, even as memories of the past surfaced to remind me of the gravity of what she had suffered. Each smile, each spontaneous gesture became a silent but deeply meaningful victory, indicating that we were successfully rebuilding the lost childhood. Gustavo remained an essential pillar, not only in logistics, but also in emotional support. He helped me cope with the moments of discouragement and frustration that were inevitable given the intensity of the trauma. Each step forward for Livia was celebrated, but he also reminded us of the need for constant vigilance. The feeling of being on constant alert became part of our routine, as if every small detail could affect the progress we had made. Even so, watching my daughter react positively, exploring her surroundings safely and confidently, gave me the strength to keep fighting every day. Learning to protect my own emotional health became essential. Often, fatigue, anger, and anxiety nearly paralyzed me, and I began to doubt my ability to move forward. But every curious look from Livia, every gesture of renewed confidence, reminded me that giving up was not an option. Every step she took toward autonomy and emotional security was also a reminder of my responsibility to be present, to act with firmness and love, and to never allow her to return to the fearful situation she had experienced. I learned that resilience requires emotional discipline, presence, and continued dedication. Livia began participating in activities outside the home, something that initially caused her great anxiety. But with patience and consistency, she began to explore the world in a healthy way. Seeing her spontaneous laughter, her curious looks, and her interactions with other children filled me with emotion and pride. Each step forward was a silent victory against years of conditioning and abuse, concrete proof that it was possible to rebuild childhood and trust even after profound trauma. These moments showed me that recovery isn't quick, but it is possible and real when accompanied by adequate emotional and professional support. The judicial system continued to monitor every step, but now it became an essential protective structure. Sergio Almeida, the legal guardian, monitored our routine and made independent recommendations, ensuring that all decisions were made in Livia's best interests. The hearings still generated anxiety, but there was relief. Finally, the law was on our side. Knowing that each protective measure had legal backing allowed me to breathe easier and reinforced that every effort, every tear, and every sleepless night was building a safe space where my daughter could flourish. I felt that despite the difficulties, we were overcoming crucial steps toward her recovery. Today, when I look back, I realize how much our lives have changed. Livia still has moments of withdrawal, but now she runs, plays, and interacts with other children in a natural and healthy way. Seeing her joy blossom is something I never imagined I would experience again. I still carry the pain of those memories, but also an immense pride in her strength. Every step we take together is a silent and profound victory, showing that even in the darkest situations, there is hope and the possibility of rebuilding. Each gesture of her trust is proof that lost childhood can be partially restored when there is love, patience, and a constant presence. Rebuilding our lives was never linear. There were days when I thought all progress would be lost, that Livia's trauma would be insurmountable. But every spontaneous smile, every fearless hug, every gesture of renewed trust reminded me that it was all worth it. I learned that protecting a child goes far beyond physical presence. It requires emotional dedication, infinite patience, courage, and the ability to face fears and traumas every day. Each step forward my daughter took was a silent victory, a reminder that love can overcome deep trauma when combined with action and persistence. The trauma we faced taught me brutally and intensely about resilience. It's not about instantaneous recovery or cliches. It's about waking up every day and facing seemingly impossible challenges, slowly rebuilding trust, accepting mistakes, and moving on. Each step my daughter took showed me that even when all seems lost, it's possible to build security and love. I discovered a strength within myself that only revealed itself through suffering. and I understood that protecting someone we love deeply requires courage and total dedication without immediate guarantees. I also learned the importance of having a solid support network. Without Gustavo, Mariana, Teresa, Clara, and everyone who helped us, I wouldn't have made it. Every person who believes in you, shares knowledge, support, and strength is essential when facing a situation of child abuse. Being a parent facing such intense trauma isn't something you face alone. It takes courage, information, patience, and a willingness to reinvent yourself every day. Recognizing that asking for help isn't a weakness was a turning point for my daughter and me, and allowed us to build a foundation of protection, love, and recovery. Today, our lives are still constantly being rebuilt, but we live with security, trust, and affection. Livia is blossoming, revealing her unique personality, even while carrying deep scars. I still feel pain from some memories, but I know there is a path to recovery and protection, and that every small step forward is a reason to celebrate. For those facing something similar, there is strength within you, and with support, love, and courage, it is possible to protect, rebuild, and allow a child's life and childhood to flourish again.